Hello, everyone. This is your host, Manoj Tandon, with another episode of Dark Rhino Security Confidential. We have another awesome guest, but as you can guess, I'm going to first ask you to please hit the like and subscribe buttons because we all work for an algorithm. And the more you do that, the more we're able to bring you content like this and great folks like who we're about to have on the show. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Mr. Ed Gaudet. Ed is the CEO and founder of Censinet. We'll talk about that, but he is a thought leader in enterprise risk and third-party risk management. We'll get into that topic. It's very relevant to our audience. He is deep into cyber governance in the age of AI. He has 25 years of software leadership experience in cybersecurity, risk management, and healthcare IT. He's been known for driving innovation at companies like Imprivata and Liquid Machines. Thank you for being here, Ed, and taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thanks, Manoj. Yeah, no, this is it's a pleasure to be here.
So I, the audience loves an origin story. Did you always want to be a computer science guy when you grew
No,
up, or
hell no. I was a hippie. I was a beatnik poet. I still write poetry.
really? Do you
Yeah, I
publish?
do. I do. Yeah, I'm published. Yeah. Yeah, I'm in JAM. I'm in the Journal of American Medical Association, among other literary magazines.
Really?
Yeah. So that's my first love. I've been writing since I was small. I think third, fourth grade. And I've been putting more time into it. The older I get, because we don't have much time left, Manoj, on this
That's
planet, as we were
right.
talking about earlier.
We were talking about
So,
that a bit earlier. Certainly the
that's
years
right.
ahead
So
are far less than those that
uh,
have gone by. So
hug who you love and what you love, right?
So
Hmm.
how did a poet get into the world of
Yeah.
governance and
Mm.
risk management?
I was in a business school, believe it or not, as a writer. I went to Bentley University now,
Okay.
which is an accounting school in the Northeast and in the Boston area. And I was a writer of all things, and forced to join the military, which is really the right amount of discipline to balance out my hippie persona, if
What
you
year
will.
was that in, if you don't mind my asking?
Oh, well, so I graduated high school in 83. So 83 to 87. Yeah. It's 60. I'm going to be 60 this year,
That's
Manoj. It's a big
awesome,
year.
man.
Yeah, it's the Grateful Dead birthday too. They're going to be 60 too. So look at
Hey, you
that.
know what?
You got the dead, future deadhead. When I was a kid, still am, still go to the shows.
That's phenomenal.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. But yeah, I got into technology at an early age. A neighbor of mine was building computers. He was our dungeon master. So there you go. There's a little D&D there.
I don't think
That's a
anybody would
big
know
D.
what Dungeons and Dragons is anymore. That was kind of a
No, you'd be surprised. People still play it.
really.
Absolutely. Yeah, they do. They sure do. And so that sort of led me into the world of tech, and I took a programming class in college, and had an opportunity to join a startup right out of school as a technical writer. And
Or was
so
it
I still have
Microsoft
my
by any
the
chance?
no. It was just a little startup. Yeah, I wish I bought Microsoft stock at the time, but and anyway, it was we were building products to help people transition off of VMS, if you remember the
VAX
VAX,
VMS. I worked on
digital
it
digital
quite a
equipment.
bit.
Yeah, so you and I are probably
We
similar
are
age.
we're not even 4 years apart.
Oh, very good, very good. So yeah, we built things like EDT, which was an editor in the VAX. We had
Okay.
a command line language we called VCL, which was a DCL emulator, and we built backup and storage and email, all for Unix and for MS DOS at the time, and for OS2. It was kind of interesting. My first foray into what a startup was. Within a year, I was running marketing, and then within 2 years, I was running sales and traveling the world as a kid, and really, dealing with that imposter syndrome, we like to say, right? Where you have all this huge responsibility, and you're making it up, and you're learning on the job, and I'm an autodidact, so I'm a self learner, and what I didn't know, I read and learned on the job and applied, and wasn't afraid to make mistakes. And shortly thereafter, I realized I had this ability to see market needs from a product perspective, and love to build products that really change markets and change the way people do things. Typically, manual processes that get
Yep.
automated in some fashion. So,
That at what point did you uh, start your own journey with your own companies, if you will?
well, I like to say I've had the pleasure to work at 11 companies in my career, and many of them were at an early
Okay.
stage. So some of them I was the founder, some of them I was an early founding executive, and so I consider myself part of the success or failure. We had a couple failures there of those organizations. And again, you always have a founder or two, but it takes a team. It takes a great team to build a company. And so, regardless of whether I founded the company or not, it's really just standing on the shoulders of just a great teams of people over the years that really knew how to build amazing products and get them to market and grow businesses. I've worked on two IPOs. So I've taken two companies public. I've done a bunch of M&A in between. Like I said, I had a couple failures
It's
there.
okay.
So I'm not batting 1,000, but I think I'm batting over 600.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's Warren Buffett territory.
yeah, it's not bad.
He
Yeah,
wasn't batting a
it's
thousand either.
it.
You never hear about the failures.
You,
Yeah.
the failures are where you learn. The failures are the ones that really define you, I think, as individuals, because it's what you do and how you recover from them that I think develops who you become longer term.
So we have a lot of young listeners to this show.
Mm,
And
yeah.
anyone who's listening to this who might be thinking, okay, right now I'm an analyst and I do want to jump off the high dive, if you will, and go off on my own. Is there any advice or any characteristics you would say they need to develop to make that leap of faith?
Hmm. I think just do it. Like, if you're young enough, um, just even if you're old enough, like there's no t- time is artificial. We impose this notion of time on ourselves. And you hear the stories of the 7-year-old that just got her graduate degree or doctorate degree, or and I love those stories, because that's a person that didn't use time as a constraint, right? So whether you're young or old, it doesn't really matter. If you have an idea and you have a passion about something, um, go for it. Like, even if you fail, you're going to learn so much on that journey about who you are and the what abilities you have. And again, for me, I became I guess a startup entrepreneur junkie, whatever you want to call it, because of that ability to have the unknown reveal itself, and really enjoy the things that I didn't understand or know about myself or individuals or the product or the customer or whatever the market over time. To me, that's what really gets me out of bed every day, is dealing with that
See,
unknown.
that's someone that's going completely against the grain because most people are programmed to fear the
Oh, I know.
unknown, right? And that, I guess that's the key
Yeah,
part of this is that you really have to be willing to face that uncertainty. A-
you
And
do.
you're overcoming a survival instinct and that's been programmed into us genetically in some ways that says,
Yeah.
hey, you better figure out where your next meal's coming from. And you don't want to disrupt anything to do with that. And here you are thinking, I got a good idea. It may or may not work. I may end up homeless, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Give it a shot, and you'll take so much away from the experience that, again, is priceless. You're not going to get it going to an IBM, unfortunately, or an Amazon. You'll learn things in those experiences, but and some larger organizations are better than others. But there's nothing like starting your own thing, putting your name on it.
Well, Ed, I since you're giving us such wisdom, I have to ask another question along this line. What about younger folks who are debating should they be going to college right now or delaying
Mm.
that
Oh man,
or not? These are very real problems a lot of folks in the audience face. And
yeah,
what
yeah.
would you, as a CEO, what's your
College for me was more than learning. It was the experience. And so, and I had to, I did a lot. I had to overcome a lot to stay in school. So, my first year at Bentley, I wasn't the best student. I got myself into some trouble, let's say. And my father was going to pull me out and make me move back home. And, for me, that was a non-starter. So, I was forced to join the military. I was forced to go to basic training down in Fort Kentucky, at Fort Knox in Kentucky, and apply for a ROTC scholarship. And that was the way I was going to stay in school.
ah,
And so I went to basic training. I won the scholarship, and I was able to stay for 4 years at Bentley
wow,
College.
what a story.
Yeah, and so for me, like, if you can go to college, go, because it's more than just the ability to learn. You're going to learn about yourself, and if it's given to you, that's one thing, but if you have to put yourself through school, that's another thing, and you're going to take it a lot more seriously, I think, over time. I certainly didn't the first year. I had fun the first year,
Why
but
not?
I buckled. I still had fun the years 2, 3, and 4 too. But I met my wife there. We've been married for 35 years this year.
Fantastic.
We have 3 beautiful daughters. I just have a grandson, my first
Congratulations.
grandchild. Thank you. Yeah, he's 3 months old. And so that would have never happened had I not gone to college. So, but again, it wasn't like I had a plan, but that wasn't necessarily the plan. The plan revealed itself, which is what I love about life, right? It kind of takes you to different places that you would have never imagined when you started out. I do think my piece of advice to anybody is always have a plan. You should always have an opinion about where you're going. That's a
Yeah,
plan, right? It can change over time, but at least you have your own opinion about what you want to do with your life. It's really important.
that's sage advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I'm sure the
no
audience will
problem.
love that too.
I hope so.
So now let's get into a more benign topic, shall we say? Third party
Third party
risk.
risk. Third party risk.
Okay. So, again, giving you some context, a lot of folks on this show are from the SMB world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I kid you not, even today, most SMBs, even businesses with 200, 300, 600 employees, whatever, like, oh, we're a trucking company. Who the hell wants to?
Yeah.
We're not a target for anything. We make bricks, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
why should I care, Ed, about compliance, governance, third party risk?
Yeah. So for us, for me anyway, it was a personal journey, in so much as if your mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, friend, spouse, child is hooked up to a life-saving device in your local hospital. My local hospital is a SMB. It's a
Yes.
small hospital. And there are many small clinics around here too that service the population and community. If that hospital gets attacked, has a ransomware event, it shuts down. Now all of a sudden it becomes personal, because someone that needs care can't get it. Someone that's in an ambulance on their way to the hospital has to be diverted. Maybe 10 miles, maybe 2 hours if you're in a rural community hospital.
Yeah.
That's personal, right? So it's no longer about data. Data was obviously, depending on what industry you're in, it could be a hassle, it could be inconvenient, it could mean you lose some money, it could mean you lose your patient data. Ransomware is different. Ransomware is a patient safety issue. And so, regardless of size, it's an SMB issue, regardless of size of organization within healthcare. And healthcare is a huge ecosystem.
Oh, it's gigantic.
And it's not just, right? It's a laundry service that services a hospital. Why does a laundry service care about cyber? Well, if they get attacked and get shut down and can't service hospitals for whatever reason, guess what? Those hospitals can't operate because they have no laundry.
No.
So it's if it's a food service provider, if it's a consultant, a mom and pop consultant, maybe doing revenue cycle management collections, they can't collect revenue. They can't obviously operate as an organization. So healthcare is a vast ecosystem that not only includes healthcare providers, but also many other supporting systems and services that are integral to those organizations running.
Take us into a little bit what's going on in the mind of these healthcare companies when it comes to cyber. And I'll give you a little bit of context. So you've heard of Change Healthcare, and I'm going to pick on them
Of
because they
course.
put themselves in the news
Yeah.
twice,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's a large organization, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I bet if you tried to sell them or lay out a very deep cybersecurity defense in depth architecture, well, they'd say we don't have the budget to do some of these things and we're not going to do it. Yet, mysteriously, after losing their asses twice, they found $22 million to pay the ransomware the first time. And then that wasn't enough. They donated 22 million again. And I can assure you that whatever amount would have gone into putting in defense in depth strategy in place, it would have been way less than $44 million at Change.
Yes, indeed.
So this is all public knowledge. So now, based on what you've said, what's really going on here? Like, why don't they take this seriously, or they do, or where's the gap here? Because there's obviously something that's amiss.
Yeah, it's a big problem, and there are many. There's much blame to go around, so to speak. But cybersecurity has been a silo within IT for years. It's a fairly technical discipline. Some of the challenges are the language that those professionals use when they communicate things that are problematic to the organization, threats, vulnerabilities, etc., right? They speak in terms of technology. And we spend a lot of time and money transforming the top line activities, the top line processes we have in an organization, whether they be new business models, new ways to generate revenue, new ways to generate and extend customers, right? But no one looks at the cost centers and really thinks about, is there opportunities to transform cybersecurity? Is there an opportunity to transform third party risk? And what we would posit is absolutely now is the time to consider that with all of the pressures you have from funding sources. The new administration is shutting down a number of funding sources that these hospitals are used to. So budgets are going to get tighter and tighter and tighter, and no one wants to lose people. And I'm not suggesting that you have to, but you can move people into higher value, top of license issues versus doing banal, rote activities that, quite frankly, the automation that's available today can do for you. And so, why do you have people doing risk assessments when you can have a platform like a Censinet do the risk assessments for you, or an MSP team do the risk assessments for you on your behalf, right? And then your risk team can spend time learning to communicate to the business in terms the business understands. Now, part of that is because, for the most part, we think, again, as an industry, we think in terms of technology. We've got a vendor, we have their product, we want to assess the risk. across using cybersecurity frameworks like NIST,
Yeah.
right? We want to look for things like encryption and
Sure.
multi-factor authentication and business continuity plans and recovery times and objectives and things that, quite frankly, the business may not really understand. We have an opportunity to change the way we communicate with the business based on the business process, based on the process that basically the business understand. Each business owner understands their process.
Sure.
They understand the technology that they use to enable that process. They understand the importance of that technology. They understand if it's a critical function in the organization or not. If that shuts down for any period of time, 24, 48 hours, is there a functional impact to the organization? Will that organization shut down, or can it continue to operate? They know that, but we need to stop working in silos and start thinking horizontally about the problem and talk about it in terms of business processes, talk about it in terms of critical functions, talk about in terms of impact, right? What's our exposure, our risk exposure if this system goes down, and how quickly can we recover? And do we have those recovery plans already identified and created? And have we tested those recovery plans, right? Everyone knows today it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So then your recovery plan better be good and it better be tested, because if you're going to get hit, it's going to be as quick as it's going to be all about how fast you can recover, not about the fact that you got hit.
Yep. That's going to be a huge part of it. And a lot of organizations have come to understand they sometimes can't recover.
They can't or they treat it separately. We have an opportunity to consolidate and bring these things together. These worlds should come together because they're relatable and they're related. And yet we treat them as silos. Why are we doing that? Why do we have separate people running these different silos? We should put them under one roof and really leverage the automation that's
But
available
who's
today.
going to,
There's so much available.
who in the organization would actually lead that effort? Because now that means that whoever's going to do this has to be a bridge between the tech and the business.
Yeah.
And they have to have a
Yeah.
functional knowledge of how they make money.
Yeah. That's right. It's either the CIO, it's the COO, it's the CISO, depending on the level of experience and maturity. There are plenty of CISOs out there that can have a conversation with the business, understand the dynamics at a board level, understand and communicate risk in terms of business risk, not technical risk, understand patient safety risk versus operational risk, right? So there are, but
do they have the independence? Do they have the agency to actually?
Some do. Yeah, some do. Absolutely. Some do. Some don't. Some can still do it, but don't have necessarily the agency, but still are capable of doing it. And some have neither.
That has to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. And that's the
Yeah, of course
CEO's
it
job,
does.
I guess. That
It's how it's getting addressed? It's getting addressed post event. That's how it's getting addressed. So there's a large enough event, and unfortunately, the CISO, he or she may be very good, very talented, but they're getting caught up in the event and they're getting moved out of the organization. That's what's happening.
Well, that happens 100% of the time. Most of the time, once the organization gets hit, the CISO's taking the bullet in the back of the head.
Not always. No, I disagree. Not again, because things happen, right? Things happen. As long as you're communicating, you've done everything you possibly can. It's why would you terminate a CISO that is doing all the right things, communicating all the right things? And like I said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. No matter, you cannot have 100% security. It's not possible. You can't afford it.
Yeah, you can't
So
have it. Even
therefore,
if you could afford it, it won't exist.
well, no, it won't exist because you shut everything down. Right? You can't, like, a 100% secure home
A
is
prison.
is a prison. Exactly. It's just not right. It's not usable. There's no utility, right? So you have to operate the business with a level of risk. There's no such thing as a fully transparent 0% risk organization. There's risk all the time. The question is, what is our risk appetite? What is our risk tolerance? Are we funding it? Can we afford recovery in hours, or do we need to have recovery in days for this particular business process? Because it's not critical. But for a critical function, we want 4 hours. So therefore, we're going to spend a couple of $1,000,000 for a hot site. Those are the conversations I have to have. The CISO can orchestrate, can facilitate those conversations. Absolutely. But ultimately, that's a board level conversation. Do we have the investment? Do we want to make the investment to cover the risk here, given this recovery objective, or not? And then we take the risk.
Yeah.
And would you fire a CISO because there's an event? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Politics.
Yeah, sometimes, but
someone always has to take the blame. There's always a fit. Look at all the major ones that have happened out there, and it's someone.
I'm an optimist. I don't know.
I would
look at that and say, do I want to work in an organization like that? That's again, that could be a blessing in disguise.
Well, you have that entrepreneurial spirit, so you're going to walk away from. But a lot of people, a guy's going to like, well, this gig's paying for my condo in Florida, so
yeah, I know, yeah.
What the heck, if it works a couple of years, I'll take that. That's unfortunate, but it's just the world as it is. It's the way it's set.
It's the world as it is. But again, some of those wounds are self-inflicted too, right? So again, I'm not suggesting that there's not a give and take there too. There are things that CISOs need to do. They need to lead the organization. And what that means is they need to literally change the organization. And a lot of them don't want to go down that path because change is hard. Like you said earlier, right? Most people don't like the unknown. Most people don't like change, right?
They don't want to fail. I mean, there's what if it doesn't go well?
You don't want to fail, but you don't grow either, right? So there's that trade-off, right? I remember my father coming to me, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years into my career, and he sat me down. He's like, yeah, my mother, your mother and I want to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, okay. They were really serious. My father was never really serious, but he was serious twice. This is one time he was serious. He's like, we're really concerned that you can't hold a job down. I started laughing. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, you've had like 3 jobs over the last 10 years. And he had 1 job his entire life. I'm like, Dad, that's the business I'm in. I'm in tech. I'm going to have a job probably every 3-4 years, a new thing. And it's kind of
and he's probably thinking, well, where's my son going to get his pension from?
Yeah, well, that's true too. But
again, it's that survival mentality, and it's the world in which they grew up, and
it is,
and it was par for the course in that era at that time. I can't blame them. My parents had a similar line of thought, so I certainly understand.
Do you want to know the other question he asked me?
Yes, I do.
So the other time he sat me down was I traveled most of my career, and typically West Coast, because just tech is on the West Coast, East Coast, right? And so one day he sat me down again. Your mother and I want to talk to you. We're really concerned. I'm like, what's going on now? Like, do you have another family out on the West Coast? I'm like, what are you talking about? You're always out there. We just saw this Lifetime movie where the guy had 2 families. I'm like, Dad, I can barely keep my 1 family. How would I do 2 families? Are you insane? Oh, anyway,
well, that
God rest his soul.
That does point to something. It's the pace of change has accelerated so quickly. Like in their case, it would have been, how can you have 2 families? But the world had evolved enough that you could. It became a smaller place. So it's probably not practical, but a willing person could maybe pull some stunt like that off. Now,
I'm sure there are people that are doing it. There's no question.
But you look at what AI has done with the folks at OpenAI who kicked us off on this thing, and how rapidly they've supercharged change. Right?
Isn't it beautiful?
I think it's
from a technology's perspective.
Well, I think it's great from a human perspective because it's so disruptive.
I don't know about that.
Well, I think it's going to be great because
I think it's scary as hell for people. I think it's, my poet side is like, whoa, what world are we leaving my grandson?
A world in which they can be poets and not worry about the grunt work. hopefully.
That would be interesting, right? That would mean that it comes full circle, because remember there was a time where the poets were as important as the politicians, right?
Sure.
And so that would be interesting, but I don't know if that's what's going to happen, because it's people. It's soiling green, as they say, right? It's people. So whenever you shout out to Charlton Heston, whenever you have people in the you have nefarious behavior, and that's we haven't even scratched the surface in how we're arming evil right now. Like, what we know what we're doing for good with AI, or at least we think we know what we're doing for good with AI. What are we doing for evil?
Well,
Like, what is that going to look like in 10 years? That's the thing that scares
oh,
me the most, because AI is such a force multiplier, and we're just scratching the surface
I
right
think
now.
it's even true on the good guy side. I don't think we've even lit the
It
candle
is.
on that yet. The what is going to be possible versus, I mean, there's a lot of talk in media, a lot of gloom talk about, oh, these jobs will go away and this is going to happen. And you know what? Some of those jobs are absolutely going to go away. You know, if you are an auditor, not today, but I could see 5 years out, that job is toast, right? What
Development jobs are already changing. I
development
mean, we're already
jobs
seeing.
are gonna change. If you are a radiologist or a pathologist, probably 20 years out, you might not want to renew your degree or change it to something else,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Anything that involves repetitive pattern recognition is easy pickings, right? Whatever that may be. I just randomly picked a few things, but that's always been true in human history, right? Also, see 15 years out, paralegals. You know what? To me, what's limiting right now is our power structure. Because if you give ChatGPT a real problem, it bombs out. Like if I gave it a problem that I would actually outsource to an FTE, and believe me, I've done that a few times just to see what this thing was capable of.
Mm-hmm.
It always just says this is taking too long and I'm not going to do this. And that's a limitation of,
Yeah, but we're 2 years
but we're
into
2
it.
years
Like,
into
in
it.
10 years, we're going to have quantum computing, and it's not going to be a limitation any
Well, we need to
longer.
power these things. So someone has to come up
Yeah.
with the energy infrastructure,
Yeah, someone will.
yeah, to do that, which is why
Someone
I'm
will.
giving it
Someone
like a
will.
10, 15-year timeline, because it'll take time to get those things online. If we have the power, then you allow it to really think and not give you the error, well, this is thought more than 15 seconds. I'm not going to do this anymore. Well, shit.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But I don't think
Yeah.
we've lit the candle, Ed, on both sides on this. And we've had a couple guests on the show, a couple professors. And, you know, there is this thought that maybe cybersecurity becomes a robot versus robot.
Interesting. Well, it kind of it is that today, in some ways, right? You have automation against automation, and yeah, there's humans on either end sort of orchestrating it and facilitating it. But yeah, it'll be interesting once the agents start to come into play, how much of that is really robot to robot, right? Where things are happening and we're not even seeing them, because they're they're being fought by these two agents or multiple agents out there, right? And we don't ever see, because it's like it's like the buzz, the mosquito magnet you have out in
Yep.
your yard.
It's
It's catching mosquitoes. You see the end. Oh, look at all these mosquitoes it caught, right? But you never, you're not seeing the mosquitoes go in there, right, and battle it out. So
so
um
so Ed, what are your thoughts AI and governance? I mean, this is for
yeah.
most companies, there's going to be a challenge in just letting AI loose in their organizations. I don't know that they're ready for something like that.
Yeah, no, and you definitely see that certainly in healthcare, where um, the immediate response is, we don't know enough about this. Let's put a committee together. So they're forming these governance committees for AI to understand the risks associated, and not just cybersecurity risks, right? How do we adopt responsible AI in a way that we can apply it and not, and not kill anybody, or
That would be a good
or
thing.
misdiagnose people, or right, or the list goes on and on and on, right, given the risks. So these committees, which are cross functional in nature, are being built out to assess new technology that's coming in. But here's the dirty little secret: all the existing technology that's already in play is taking updates and getting AI enabled. So you have this risk coming into your organization that you may not even know about. So it's not just new; it's existing. It's through announced updates or unannounced updates. It's coming in again through shadow IT as well, right? The people in power are bringing this in on their personal devices, and or loading it onto their corporate machines. And so having those policies in place and a way to govern those actions and activities is really important. So we can tell people to, hey, slow down or stop, or we're not going to take that in right now, or here's our policy for this, or here's how we're going to deal with that now from a training perspective. We've been training people on phishing. Now we're going to start training people on AI and what you can use and what you can't use.
See that I'd love to get your thought on this. On with AI, once you give it the data, there's no such thing as taking it back. There's no delete function per se. The model has now ingested that and integrated it into its own living, breathing structure. So how
With open language models, that's true, but um, what's happening is people are moving to domain specific models, which can be, you can build guardrails around
sure.
those. So you don't have to push the data into the public. There's also capabilities for you to delete memories, or not enable memory functions. So there's ways around dealing with that, which was obviously a big risk early on 2 years ago. That was the big focus. So I think the industry, like for example, we built a whole infrastructure partnering with AWS to make it self-contained, proprietary, secure by design, but also secure by default. So our customers could take zero capabilities that were AI enabled. They could take one, they could take all of them, or a combination at their pace, right? So it's on demand versus we turn it all on, right? It's all on by default, which is a disaster. We don't recommend that. So we think more organizations that are building out these solutions should take a secure by design, secure by default approach to AI.
So that brings us to your organization. Tell us
All
exactly
right.
what Censinet does.
Yeah.
What do you guys do here?
Yeah, so we help healthcare organizations manage their third party and enterprise risk, and we do it on a platform. It's built on a network based architecture, which think of it as a marketplace, if you will, for risk.
Okay.
So we connect the providers, the hospitals, the health systems with their ecosystem of vendors and third parties, including their products. And today we have over 54,000 vendors and products in the platform. And the vendors basically have the equivalent of a cybersecurity data room where they can manage all of their risk data that they have to provide to the health systems in order to transact with them, right? So as part of if I want to sell to a healthcare organization, I have to complete a security risk assessment. I have to provide documents in the form of evidence based on the claims I'm making in those questionnaires, and we manage that on the platform for those organizations and those vendors. And they can also use the platform to do and assess their internal risks as well. We call that enterprise risk management. So, and those can be in a myriad of different processes. They could be internally developed applications that we're building or integrating, or maybe there's a research or trial process where we're sharing data with a third party. We want to make sure it's done properly and safely. Or maybe we're hosting our EHR to other affiliates and we want to make sure that they're secure. So when we're hosting that EHR, we're not opening ourselves up for additional risk. So there's a broad range of healthcare specific, we call it purpose built for healthcare workflows that are enabled to get customers up and running very quickly, so they don't have to customize the platform. Like a lot of systems out there, they are like a Salesforce. It's a great system. It's a blank canvas, but
You got to
you got to
customize the
customize it.
daylights out of that.
You got to customize the deal out of it, right? We're doing that right now. We're a small company. We're spending a lot of money on customization, and we think that, quite frankly, um, there's enough knowledge in the community, and because we have this approach, we can leverage that knowledge, we can leverage that experience, and put it back into the product, so others don't have to customize it. They can take and leverage what the community has been doing since we started the company.
That's fantastic. So, in your system, then, are you? Does the organization, so a healthcare company, are they manually entering all this information, or are you actually have agents that are going out, gathering the asset information, looking at the processes, or pointing a AI agent at a
Yeah.
particular process and kick?
Yeah. Great question. So we have those capabilities enabled, but like I said, we don't turn them on by default. So when the organization is ready to adopt them, they can turn them on. But from a manual perspective, there are workflows that are automated in the platform, and a lot of what a hospital will get is leverage based on the network that we've built with the community. So, for example, if I don't know, where are you based?
Pittsburgh.
I didn't ask you this. Oh, you're in Pittsburgh. Okay, so if Penn Medical wants to assess
Okay.
Censinet as a vendor, they'd go into the platform, they'd send us a request, and we'd push a button and send them back all the data. What we call it a one-click assessment. And so an assessment that's manual, done with spreadsheets and phone calls and data objects, PDFs and files, it's all centralized, consolidated on that platform, and we drive efficiencies through those automated workflows that we built for
Okay.
customers. Does that
Yes,
make
it
sense?
does.
And we curate all of the data. So we curate the regulations, we curate what's required for HIPAA, we curate what's required for the NIST cybersecurity framework. We also provide it back as benchmark data, so you can see how you're doing, not only within your own program, but relative to your peer group as well across the network. So it's really good information as you're building out your program. You want to go for investments in certain areas of cybersecurity. You can say, hey, we're doing really well here, but we got gaps here, and look at relative to our peer group, we're underspending here. Or maybe we're overspending and we want to reallocate it into these other areas, right? So it gives them that insight into making those decisions based on data versus feelings.
Have you opened this up to like a more general audience where anyone can go and assess themselves against a peer group? That would be very interesting, actually.
Yeah, we're maniacally focused on healthcare right now.
I
So
understand, but I thought I'd ask the
yeah.
question because
Yeah.
I think that would be
Yeah.
eye-opening, actually.
But we do offer the benchmark, the peer benchmarks. So part of my vision mission for the company was not just to make a profit, obviously, and build a company, but also to give back to the community. That's what I love about healthcare, is this shared mission that only you really have in the healthcare industry. You don't really see it in other industries. You're really sitting on the same side of the table as the clinicians, because everyone knows a patient or has been a patient, right? So it's personal. So you want them to do the right thing. So we give back to the community in certain ways. One way is with our time. We spend it on some of these working groups and task
Okay.
groups that are public-private partnerships, the Healthcare Sector Coordinating Council, the Health ISAC, the 405D, which is part of HHS, and some others, right? And helping develop tools, best practices, documentation that these providers can use as they start to build out their third-party risk program or their supply chain risk management program, et cetera. And then we also enable any health system to come into the benchmarking peer capability, basically the peer benchmarking. We open it up annually to everybody, and they can go through, benchmark themselves, and they can see how they did relative to their peer group. And we publish a big report based on the findings back to the community as well. And we do that in partnership with this. We've been doing it with Class
Okay.
Research. This year we're doing it. We haven't announced it yet, so you'll be the first to
Hey,
hear
all
this. We're
right. We
doing it with
got
the
an
Scots.
exclusive. So
Yeah, we're doing it with the Scottsdale Institute. We'll be making that announcement soon.
fantastic.
And Scottsdale's great. And then American Hospital Association, the Health Sector Coordinating Council, the HISAC, they've all been sponsoring it as class research has been over the last 4 years since we've been running it.
That's great.
Yeah,
Especially if you can get these
thank you.
organizations to start using that benchmark data to better
Yeah.
themselves. That
I know it's such a useful tool, and I'm actually surprised more people don't take advantage of it because I mean it costs you time, but other than that, there's no cost. We don't nickel. We're not going to like bait and switch you. We've been doing it for 4 years. If you want to work with us with other aspects of the product, you can do that. But if you want to just get the benchmarks out of the product, you can do that as well at no cost.
are there some recurring themes or gaps you have seen with your work
Yeah.
here in healthcare that are low hanging fruit that any
Yeah.
organization can go and fix?
Yeah, I talked about this. I talked about this notion of transformation
Yeah,
and this opportunity to really look at the organizational structures, especially now that everyone's looking to save money and look at opportunities to consolidate. You've got functions that are based in silos. You got business continuity and business resiliency that they're in different groups. They should be under one group. You have your medical devices. Typically, they're managed by the bioengineering group or the biomed group. Why are they managed separately? They should be under one group. And what we found is that through the benchmarking, if it is under the agency of the CISO, they actually get better results. They get better results as they look to their overall maturity on their cybersecurity for medical devices. So that's some of the learnings we've seen, through the data. So consolidation does work, and especially if it makes sense, and it makes sense to have not just risk, but but business continuity, business resiliency, medical device security, all under one organization, in our opinion. And so it's an opportunity to transform the way you do things today and look for opportunities to save money and leverage technology. People always talk about the holy trinity of tech, right? People, process, and
right.
technology. But then they get punched in the face, like as Mike Tyson would say, right? We got a plan, but then we get punched in the face and we forget. It really is the harmonization of those three things together. If you take a product technology and apply it to a bad process, you're going to get bad outcomes. So you
Absolutely.
just by the very nature of you buying something to do something to solve a problem means you're struggling. So you have to look at not just the technology, but you have to look at your process and look for an opportunity to change. And you have to look at your people, and you may have an opportunity to change them as well. And you can't be afraid. And we find that because it's change, everyone would rather do something else, right? We'll take the product, we'll blame the product. We're getting bad outcomes from the product. Well, did you look at your process? No, our process is great. Well,
Is it?
it may not be great. May
I
not
mean,
be great,
business
right?
email
That may be the problem.
compromise, how often it occurs is
Yeah,
fundamental proof
yeah.
that people's processes.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So it may be the tool too. It may be a bad tool. Maybe you do have a great process, but your tool's crappy. But you the tool is not a panacea to solve all ills. You have to look at those three things and consider them when you implement any new technology. In my opinion, having done this for
I
I don't
think
know how many years now.
I can't think of a single guest who's been on this program that would remotely disagree with you on that topic.
Mm,
It's been
yeah.
said multiple times, yet it still seems to be the Achilles heel of most
We violate it.
all the
Yeah,
time,
we violate it all the time.
all
Yeah.
the time.
Because it's people, Manoj. It's Soylent Green. It's people.
Well,
No, but I
until
get
they
it.
get
Listen,
punched in the face, and then all of a
it's until they
sudden,
get punched in the face,
and
or they get fired because there's an incident, and then they're like holding the bag, like you said. Like, well, maybe it was warranted, maybe it wasn't,
yep.
right? Yeah, it's yeah.
So Ed, we're at the hour here. I also wanted to
All
give
right.
you a chance to plug whatever you'd like to plug and share with our
Oh
audience
man,
anything that you want to share with them.
I would love to plug the Grateful Dead. Enjoy the trip. No, love what you do. Hug who you love. Hug what you love. Otherwise, how do you get out of bed every day, right? It's life's too short. don't, don't do something you don't love. Take the risk, especially while you're younger. You can always recover. And just remember, life is a journey. Not it's there's really no destination. I guess destination is the ground or an urn,
Yep.
right? And hopefully maybe there's something
Yeah,
bigger and better
hopefully.
than all of us.
I don't know,
Manoj.
but we're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out.
But
All right.
you're if people want to get a hold of you or your organization, how do they go about doing that?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also look at us on the website. So it's CNSINET. it's my ADHD. Censinet.com and or LinkedIn. Come join my LinkedIn community and message me, and I'll put you in touch with the right folks. Look it up online.
That's phenomenal, Ed.
So,
Thanks for sharing your deep insights, and it's been great. And and as your company grows, don't be a stranger around here. Come back in, share with the audience.
Well, I'd love to, Manoj. Yeah, absolutely love to.
Keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate it, and you're always welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.